What's up, everyone? Happy New Year and God bless all of you. Yeah, I'm hosting my first ever podcast today, / just chatting. And if anyone needs a prayer request, feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'd be more than happy to pray for you. Excuse me, sorry, I had to take a sip of my caffeine to get a little more woken up, everyone. So, before I get into something, I want to go ahead and read something from the book of Psalms. And this will be coming from Psalms 148, verse 9. Mountains and all hills, fruitful trees and all cedars. So pretty much with that, that's supposed to be like kind of like how they're talking about praising God and how many things he created, so you want to be thankful. So that's pretty much what that's getting into. So, yeah. So, other than that, I hope y'all have been having a good day. I hope y'all had a wonderful New Year's Eve. I hope a lot of you aren't too hungover if you drank. Me personally, I don't drink. I quit drinking. I've been sober for about, I'd say, a year and a half now. So that is a good thing. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about everything today. So I'm gonna start out by talking about some gaming. Last night I streamed some playing World of Warcraft for the first time. I gotta say, that game's a lot of fun. Like, I can see why people get sucked into it. Like, I wasn't planning to stream for over 2 hours last night, but it just happened to work out that way because I got so sucked into it. So I can see why a lot of people go, "Oh, this game's addicting," and it's a grind because I used to spend hours playing some other RPGs as well, like Path of Exile type games. So like I used to play Diablo 3 constantly, and I would spend hours and hours doing like a lot of the rifts and just leveling up my barbarian on there. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to make sure I don't get sucked into the World of Warcraft too much, but it's a fun game. I do recommend that. I know for some of those who like shooters, quite a few people are actually enjoying the new Black Ops game that dropped. I know it's been getting pretty decent reviews on that from what I've seen. Me personally, I used to play a lot of COD, as some of you know, back from my old Sin City Boy J days. I had spent hours and hours playing Call of Duty online with everyone and just doing that. But I haven't played it a lot recently. A couple days ago, I was playing some Fortnite. And I'm slowly trying to get away from the shooters, but it's just hard just because there's so much fun. And like some of those games, there's a lot of strategy involved with trying not to get killed by the opposing player. So it's a lot of fun doing the multiplayer because you really get challenged by other players that are actually really good, who know exactly what they're doing. Then you got some of the noobs that don't know what they're doing, obviously. And another game I want to eventually try is that Marvel's Rival. I see a lot of people playing that. I'm wanting to give that a try. Yeah, if there's any other games you people want to talk about, or just feel free to drop it in chat and I can look into it. I'd be happy to look into that and check it out. Another thing, like, it's hard to find like decent non-violent games for those who are really trying to get away from the violent game, because there's like your only options are like your simulators, like your flight simulator, the cooking simulator, those simulation type games, or like playing puzzle type games are going to be your only best option. And me, I'm not too big upon puzzle type games unless it's something like Bejeweled. I can play that for hours, but that's something I would not want to play on stream because that's going to bore everyone where they're just going to want to go to sleep. So, like, that's why I try to find something that is going to catch people's eyes where they want to just stay and just, like, chit-chat. As much as, like, I love doing this, I normally don't like to bring up, like, donations or anything, but I do have, like, a sub goal for over my Twitch channel. My goal is just real simple. It's just 20 subs. I'm not trying to get nothing too outrageous, but if you'd like to sub, feel free to. You're not forced to. There's no obligation. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it would be nice to have some type of support and fan base so that way I can do a lot more better things and be able to offer more to the viewers and eventually create like a game night and grow my Discord community so that way we can have a game night, or if you're a fellow Christian and you want to join Discord, we can do like prayer requests. We can do like some Bible study. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just strictly Christian. Everyone is welcome. Like, I just ask if you do join a Discord server, try to refrain from using too much profanity in there, as there are some people out there, like especially kids who are smart enough to fake their birth date, and kids happen to join certain Discord servers. I have seen it in the past from other Discord servers I used to belong to back in my old days of Sin City Boy J, so it is possible. And I do recommend some of the parents to keep tabs of your children at all times. Know what they're doing, especially if they're under the age of 18. Really keep tabs on them, because the world we're living in today is just so dangerous. We got so many people that are trying to lure these kids into the whole human trafficking thing. That's a huge problem here in Atlanta, and I'm sure all over the world that's a huge problem. So I feel we really do need to protect those people and just watch those young adults and these young kids. Because even though some of them might know how to fend for themselves, there's always that one person that can overpower you. That's not hard to do. Other than that, like what topics would you like to talk about, or you want to hear me talk about? Like, I know some people like relationship advice from some of my past relationships. I can give some advice on that. But I do recommend for people who are starting to date and all that, stay away from being a simp. That's all I can recommend for you men. Do not keep buying everything, paying everything, just because you do not know how that woman's heart is. Or if you're a woman, don't let the guy manipulate you into buying him stuff either. Keep it 50-50 for the time being until you know that is the right one and you guys are getting married for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons, because there's a lot of people getting married for the wrong reasons. So I really recommend just stay away from toxic relationships. And if you're one of those men or women that like to broadcast your drama on TikTok or any other platform that you can do a live video on, please stop, because you're making yourself look like a complete, utter fool. And I understand we live in the age of technology with streaming and everything. Everyone wants to broadcast, or they want to post what they ate on social media. I'm like, you don't need to let every single person know your detailed business of every single day. Sometimes certain things should be kept private. Like, if you want to show off some plate of food that looked really, really amazing, that's fine. But you don't need to do it every time. Like, sometimes it's just better to not share too much. And be careful of sharing your location, especially relationships. If you had an ex that stalked you at one point, do not share your location. Even though you blocked them, that person that's stalking you may be friends with one of your mutual friends still. And they could view your location on their social media page as well when they show them something. So be mindful of those things as well. Yeah, as far as like movies and stuff, I haven't seen any movies recently. I don't go to a lot of movies like I used to ever. Even after the pandemic, I stopped going to movies. So I do a lot more streaming of watching stuff. I just wait for stuff to get released on streaming platforms like Prime. And yeah, but if there is some movies out there that you like me to check out, feel free to drop it in chat or post a comment later if you watch this later. As far as anything goes, like, I'm a pretty open person. I'm a pretty open book. I try not to post too much about things of my personal life on social media, just mainly because I feel it doesn't need to be shared with everybody. Sometimes you just gotta keep certain things off of social media. But if you are dealing with depression, like, I sometimes deal with it, but the best medicine for that is to either pray to whatever you believe in, whatever your higher power is. For me, it's Jesus. But for some of those who are non-believers, find something that makes you happy. If you're depressed, or if you're really, really that bad, seek help. Like, even if it's to call the prevention hotline just because you need to talk to someone, even call that number. It's better to call that or text that and just talk to one of those people instead of just not talking to anybody at all. And luckily, like, there are some apps out there now where they can get you connected to some psychiatrists or some counselors of some kind to talk to you about anything that's bothering you or bugging you. And just, like, remember, like, there's always a better bright light in that road. Like, so don't feel like you're completely alone when you're not. There's a lot of people who are probably going through the same thing you are, or gone through a similar experience of what you're going through. So don't feel like it's weak to cry. And men out there, it is okay for a man to cry, but at the same time, it's still important for us to hold our composure. I know it stinks that we have to keep our emotions bottled up and we can't cry in public, but it's okay to cry behind the closed doors, to let it out. Sometimes you have to bawl your eyes out behind closed doors just to let whatever's bothering you out. And sometimes it's okay to do that. but I don't recommend keeping it bottled up too much. Let it out when you're by yourself sometimes. When you're behind closed doors, it's okay to let it out and just let the tears flow, because sometimes you'll feel a lot more relief than keeping it bottled up. Especially if you know people will make fun of you about crying if you're around them. Sometimes it's just better just to go in your room and go ahead and just keep it closed so you can just let your tears out, or find some type of peace to let it out some way. If you're not the crying type, if you feel like you gotta hit something, get yourself a punching bag. Sometimes a punching bag helps to relieve any stress or depression because you can just fight it out of you. But for me, my go-to is like reading the Bible, or I just try to listen to some type of gospel music or something relaxing. A lot of people like to do meditation, which is great. Like, especially if you're doing a form of meditation to get closer connected to God, that's the best. Or even just to have some time to just sit, relax, do breathing exercises. Even that even helps with the stress, because I go through a lot of stress also in my day-to-day life because of the profession I'm in, which I'm hoping I can eventually do this full-time instead of working a full-time job. But I know it'll come eventually. I'm going to try to stay consistent as much as possible on here and try to please all you viewers, just mainly because without your guys' viewership or support, I can't do this. Like, you men and women make this channel what it is. Like, it's not just me. So, like, feel free to leave any type of feedback, even if it's something negative that you want to point out. Like, I know I could talk more, and I understand sometimes I get in the zone playing. I know I'm not as entertaining, and I apologize for that. That's just part of, like, my autism. Sometimes I just get so zoned into the game that I forget. So try to bear with me, and feel free to, like, give me any type of suggestions. I'm very open, and I'm also okay with constructive criticism, just mainly because you can't get better without a little constructive criticism or just any feedback at all. That's the only way anyone's going to get better, is by giving feedback or some type of constructive criticism. So there's nothing wrong with that. If people can't handle constructive criticism, then that means you have to work on yourself more to be able to accept that, because people are going to nitpick everything you do. That's just the society we live in today. And there's nothing wrong with taking constructive criticism from people that are trying to come from the right place, the right headspace. And especially if it's coming from their heart because they believe in you. So sometimes it's good to listen to that constructive criticism from those who actually believe in you and actually care about you as a person. Because there's a lot of people who aren't going to care. They're not going to sit and give you the advice that you really need. They're just going to go along and shake their head as you're complaining. And sometimes it's better not to complain too much, because the more you complain, the more people will just start tuning off. They're just going to tune you out, and they're just going to eventually, altogether, they're just going to stop being around you. And that's the reason why a lot of people lose a lot of friendships. That's how I lost a lot of friendships as well. Like, me personally, I don't have a lot of friends. I probably don't have any friends, and that's fine with me. But at the same time, I want to say this knowledge out there so that way people don't end up like me, not having friends. I know it's hard to be social with people. That's my biggest problem also, and that's the reason why I stay single as well, because I know my social skills to talk to women are not up there. Like, And like all my girlfriends I've had, it's because I never asked them. They came to me. I let them come to me, and they just didn't work out because I would say it's not because I wasn't putting in effort. It's mainly because the fact that I'm not used to getting or receiving a lot of love or giving love. That's just not how my personality is, and I'm still trying to work on that, learning. Like sometimes like I feel bad that I don't show enough affection toward my own parents. Sometimes I feel bad about that, but at the same time like I'm trying to work on that more, just mainly because a lot of people don't realize, especially the ones that have both of their parents in their life and they're still married, you right there have a blessing in disguise to be able to live with both of your parents still. Because when I was not even 1 year old, my mom and biological father were already divorced. As I got older, they tried to make it work and it just didn't work out. And when I was younger, I felt like it was my fault, but at the same time, my older sister at the time was saying, no, it's not our fault, and this and that. And she's right. And for you kids out there going through a tough time, your parents divorcing, just remember it is never your fault. It's just sometimes parents grow apart. That does happen. And my recommendation for those parents is try to seek marriage counseling first before just up and ending everything. If it just still doesn't work, then you can discuss about filing for divorce. But infidelity and cheating is never the answer, in my opinion. Which that's at an all-time high right now in this world, which is sad because everyone's so stuck into materialistic things. And it's not just all women have high expectations. There are some men out there that have very high expectations as well. And I feel both sides need to bring their standards down just a little more. And I'm not talking about a couple notches, I'm talking a lot. Because especially if you're a real true godly person or you're really trying to live a truly godly life, you actually need to bring your standards down even more, because you got to remember, we're not God. We're not perfect. We're all sinners. We're going to be sinners till the day we meet Christ for the final judgment for those who are Christians. But at the same time, like, I don't want to get too deep into religion because I know sometimes people do get offended. So I want to be respectful of other people's religious beliefs. I will respect it, but I won't indulge in it. There's a difference between respecting and indulging. You can respect someone with different religious beliefs, but if you're a real Christian, do not indulge in it. That's all I'm going to say, and that's where I'm going to leave it at that. As far as anything goes, like, if you need, like, if some of you actually want to come to Christ, like, feel free to drop in the comments or join the Discord server. I'll be more than happy to pray for you. If you need just prayer requests or you're just struggling, you don't know what to do with that struggle, or you're just super depressed, you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Like, I'd be more than happy to hear what you have to say. And this is not just to men. I'm here also to hear some of the women out. Like, if some of you women are going through a tough time, especially if you're a real true single parent that tried everything to keep the marriage going, but the spouse cheated or they just didn't want anything to do with the kid, which that does happen. There are some deadbeat parents out there that don't want anything to do with their kids or anything to do with their children at all. And some of those people are forced to being a single parent and raising them on their own. So for some of those women that have a problem with mama's boys, you need to reevaluate your headspace and thinking about why they're a mama's boy, because you don't know what that person went through. They could have went through where their parent, like their father, was never in the picture, or if it's a person that grew up with just their father because their mother's in the picture. Don't get quick to judge saying, oh, that person doesn't love me. You got to understand, when someone just grew up with their dad, the dad is not going to teach you really the whole aspect of how to love. That's more the mother's duty, is to nurture the children and teach them how to love. The father, on the other hand, their responsibility is to teach them how to be an actual man and how to take on responsibility for the boys. And then the woman's responsibility for the daughters is to teach them how to be a woman properly and how to have good etiquette and have good, just like a mind frame to show love. But the father's job with the daughter is to teach the daughter how to also be tough mentally and physically by telling them, watch out for this is what guys will do, and blah, blah, blah. And that's what a father's supposed to do for their daughter, and the mother's supposed to do for their son, is to just nurture and teach them how to love, and just teach the daughter how to be an actual woman per se. But at the same time, there are some bad parents out there that do bad parenting. I want to touch base on that as well, because not all parents are good parents. Like I said earlier, there could be some deadbeat parents, but there's parents in general that don't care at all. There's even mothers that just don't care at all. There's some fathers that just don't care at all. And a lot of times they will never change, and that's because they're so used to doing that way. That's their thought process, because they themselves were probably abandoned, or they didn't want to listen to anything their parents say. But a lot of times, those of us who are in our 40s, you got to remember the time frame that our parents grew up. Their parents, our grandparents, grew up during the Great Depression. So a lot of them had to really, really stop being a kid at such an early age. I heard a story from my father a while back about how my grandfather literally had to stop going to school and start working. And then he served in World War II, and he had a very, very hard life. So did my grandmother. They grew up during the Great Depression, where everyone that was a man was working, busting their hump to feed their family and put clothes on their back. And it's tough when you hear stories about that, and then you see how today's generation is so rotten and just spoiled, where they don't appreciate things as much as our generation, or the generation before us and the generation before their generation is more appreciative of stuff, because they know that their parents had a very, very hard upbringing. And I used to be one of those careless people when I was younger. I didn't always appreciate a lot of the things that my mother or my father tried doing for me. And the more that I look and reflect on it as an adult now, I'm glad that I'm starting to learn and realize my flaws and my mistakes, what I did wrong, and I want to keep that in mind so that way if I ever did get married and I ever did have kids, I know how to parent properly and just tell my kids, like, hey, it's okay to show love, but don't be like bottling everything up because it's not good. It's unhealthy. And I used to bottle everything up. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And sometimes I still get that way where I don't want to talk to anybody. And I really recommend people should talk to somebody, because if you keep bottling it up in here and just keeping it to yourself, you're going to really, really bring yourself down even more, to the point where no one's going to want to just be around you because they can sense that you're in a very, very dark place. And sometimes that dark place can scare people away, instead of thinking, oh, is there anything you want to talk about or help? And especially, I know there are some women that try to go with the old ways and they want to try to comfort their man, but their man doesn't want to talk about it. And that's mainly because how society is today. They've really, really made men feel small. Like if they talk anything about their feelings or how they feel, they call them, they're not a man. And the definition of a man is going to differ for everyone. Not every male out there is going to be an alpha. There's some sigmas who are actually a lot more brilliant than some of the alphas, because we're the ones that stay quiet. We don't say anything, and we don't need anybody. We can handle things on our own. That's just a sigma personality. Where the alphas, they want a lot of that attention and glory. And I'm not trying to bash on the alphas, but some of you alphas need to start smartening up yourselves, because not everyone wants to see the Big Bang. That's just not how it's gonna work all the time. And when you look at a lot of these Fortune 500 millionaires, they're not, a lot of them, believe it or not, are not alphas. A lot of them are sigmas. But they think that they're alphas, but they're really not. A lot of them have a sigma personality trait, just mainly because they will do things on their own. They don't need anybody, because they have implanted in their head that people need them. They don't need people. And that's how a sigma personality works, where we think we don't need people, but in reality, everyone needs somebody. But it's hard for us sigmas to acknowledge those things sometimes. And that's where I even have tough battles acknowledging, saying, oh, can you help me with this? Sometimes I just like doing things on my own. That's that sigma trait where we like to not have anybody help us. We just like to do things on our own and just keep pushing forward. And I'm not saying all men are that way. Like I said, there are some alphas that like to show off, and then also but the only good trait about alphas is sometimes they're not scared to ask for help. That's one trait I do admire in the alpha trait that I wish sigmas would be more open to looking at, is talking about not being scared to ask for help, because just talking about what they want to do and just getting someone's opinion instead of just keeping it to themselves. Sometimes it's better not to keep certain things to yourself. But if you have friends and you're someone you have friends, don't be scared if you have a very, very close friend that's known you ever since you were a kid, who's never done you wrong. Those are the people you want to actually ask their honest opinion and advice on. Be like, hey, I want to run something by you. Can you give me an honest opinion with any constructive criticism or whatever? I'll take it because I want your honest opinion. Sometimes it's okay to ask those things. Especially when it comes to also to like relationship stuff, like especially the ones that know you ever since you're a kid, who've been a real true best friend, who's never stabbed you in the back, who's always been there for you through thick and thin. Those are the people that you want to talk to about relationship things, like especially if they've never tried to steal your girlfriend or your boyfriend from you. Those are the ones you want to talk to, because there are some people out there who are good friends that don't try to take your girl or try to take your boy. And they're rare now because a lot of them are already married. They already have a successful life going on. But the ones that still have those traits, we're pretty much in the shadows just because we've gotten so used to being alone and single that we just don't want to bother because of how bad people have made it by going on social media and streaming on TikTok about it. And for a lot of other relationship type things, like things do get better over time, but if you really, really want like a relationship, don't go looking for it. If you're a man, let it come to you. Don't go looking for it. And some of the women who are complaining about why aren't men trying to talk to me and this and that, and a lot of it is due to anytime a good man does approach you and ask, you automatically reject them. Or you just give them a look like, really, you're talking to me? Like, what do you expect? And this is why you're seeing less and less of us at bars. A lot of us men now who like to drink, me personally, I don't drink, but the ones that do, they're just going to go to the liquor store, pick up their 12-pack or their bottle or whatever and go home, watch the game if they're into sports, or they're just going to hop on their PlayStation, Xbox, or PC and start gaming. Like, they're not going to care. They don't care because some of the relationship stuff has gotten so toxic in this day and age. And it's kind of sad. How's it going, Flame? But like, it amazes me and wows me how many complaining videos I see, not just showing up in YouTube, but also on like TikTok, of some of these women complaining about why I can't find a good man and this and that. It's because A, you already rejected one that's probably approached you and tried to strike a conversation with. B, you have too high of expectation. C, you're worrying too much about their income. And I'm sorry to say, if you're going to care more about someone's annual salary and you want them to be a multi-millionaire, guess what? You're not first on the millionaires list. So you need to drop your standards down, because that 1% of the people that make anywhere from $500,000 annually to about, let's say, $5 million, they're not interested in you. And especially if you're doing adult content that's inappropriate on these type of platforms, you're definitely not on their list. And if they do go with you, they're only going to treat you as a side chick. They're not going to treat you as a girlfriend or a marriage material, because they're only going to treat you as that because that's what you like to pull off as your character. If that's your characteristic trait, that's how you're going to be seen and viewed and treated as. And I hate to say that, but that's how it's going to be. Because a lot of professional men don't want a woman like that. They don't want a woman with a high body count. And some of you women that are complaining about guys who have a high body count are saying guys cheat more than women do. And I'm going to be bluntly honest. Over the course of the newer years, women are starting to take the lead on cheating. I've been doing some research on that, and a lot of it's on the rise of women cheating more than men are now this day and age. And it's sad that it's gotten to that. And back when I was a lot younger, women cheated, but not as much as some of us guys did. Like some of us guys, we cheated. That is because it was a badge of honor to us doing certain things. But now, this day and age, everyone is cheating, doing infidelity, and just like a lot of this needs to stop. And a lot of you need to stop being into so much materialistic things, like, because a lot of those things you can't take with you when you die. You can't. It's just not possible. And we do need to change as a society and try to not be toxic to each other, not trying to call each other names, not trying to bring everybody down or point a finger. I'm not where I want to be in life because of this person or that person. Like, this type of stuff does need to stop, especially with this generation. This generation is so toxic and they're so stuck on their technology. They don't realize, what if everything crashed? All the technology crashed. Do you know how to read a map? Because that's what's going to end up happening eventually down the road. Someone who has nothing but a lot of time on their hands is going to figure a way to crash something to the point where everything's going to resort back to the old ways. And this is my question for some of the newer generation. Do you know how to read a map? What are you going to do if, let's say, you're in an area that has no cell phone reception range? There's no such thing as Wi-Fi. There's no such thing as being able to text or call. Do you know how to read a map? Because that will happen. And if you really think that that's never going to happen, trust me, it will happen when you least expect it. You're going to go into a dead zone of reception in a lot of states. There's quite a few states that have dead zones, especially if you go up into the mountains. You'd be surprised how many dead zones there are in the mountains where there's no cell phone reception whatsoever. There's not even a cell phone tower in the immediate area. So, like, these are things you need to think about. Same thing if you go out in the forest areas. Like, let's say you go to somewhere deep in the forest areas. There's some areas like that are dead zones. There is no cell phone reception. There is nothing. Unless you're in the military or something that has a satellite phone, you're up what they say, S Creek. You're up S Creek, which I'm not going to say the S word because I'm not big about swearing a lot. I try not to swear, but you're going to be up the creek with a paddle because you're not going to get a reception. And even some of those satellite phones don't always hit the satellite because if the satellite's not in that immediate direction, they might not even have reception. And if you think I'm just talking out of my butt, talk to some of these combat veterans. They will tell you. Trust me. Some of those people who are combat vets, who are retired military, who've been through it all, or who are retired special forces, they will tell you straight up. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They'll tell you straight up. There's been some scary times for them where, like, they didn't even think they're going to make it out alive. So just remember, it's important to teach yourself some of the old school things, like reading a map. It is important to know how to read a map, because there will come a time where there is no cell phone, like all the cell towers end up getting hacked into and it gets crashed. That's going to happen eventually one of these days. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in 5 years, but it will eventually. It will happen. Just mainly because there's people out there that are bored enough, they have nothing but time on their hands, they're going to teach themselves something new. And the ones that love to teach themselves and learn new things, those are the people you really, really need to worry about, especially the ones that stay very, very, very quiet, that don't have any friends at all, that don't go out at all. Those are the ones that are actually teaching themselves and actually getting into learning and new things and trying to figure out how things work, because there's nothing else better to do. And like, just remember, like, it's important to take things with a grain of salt, but at the same time, you got to be more open-minded, because there's always someone out there that's going to be smarter than you. There's always going to be someone that's probably a better athlete, but that's just life. But remember, it's important to still teach yourself the old ways. And I am for a lot of our constitutional rights. And for some of those people who bash on our armed services, our military men and women who serve our country, shame on you. Because these are the people that put their life on the line for us to have our freedoms, to be able to have our freedom of speech, to be able to have our right to bear arms. Like, these are the people we should be showing them respect, not shaming them, not spitting in their face. And it's sad that so many people don't take time out just to tell one of these veterans, thank you for your service. That's all you need to do. Like, I went into someone's stream this morning and I saw his name and I knew he was a veteran just by the name. So I pretty much said hi, talked to him, and I told him thank you for your service. And he really said thank you very much. That means a lot to me. You don't know how much just that one word, thank you for your service, means to those men who served our country, who are on the battlefield, the front lines. It means so much to them to know that they're appreciated by civilians. Like, some of us civilians have no idea how lucky we have it. And just remember, like, saying thank you goes a long way, not just to them, just in general to people. Like, it shows that you're appreciated. So always say thank, even if it's something small, like someone gives you a bottle of water, say thank you, I appreciate it, because it shows that you do truly appreciate the thing. Don't laugh and all that, because I've seen so many TikTok videos of a man giving their girlfriend whatever flowers and something, and they're just laughing and giggling. Like, what is this world coming to? Like, why would you laugh when your boyfriend or your husband or whoever that person is giving you something, you snicker and laugh? Like, come on, grow up. Like, you should be appreciative that that person took the initiative and try to show you kindness out of their heart to give you something, because they actually care for you. they actually love you. And to snicker and laugh, that's just ridiculous. It's utter rubbish. Like, seriously. Like, especially, I love how some of the British like to say rubbish. I love it. I love their way they speak English because it's so proper. I love it. But it's just ridiculous that some of these, and it's not just the women, there are some men that are very unappreciative as well out there, but I'm seeing it more and more from women now than ever. Because before, back when I was a lot younger, when I had a girlfriend, I brought her flowers. She loved it. She would have a big smile and she'd come running, give me a hug and say thank you so much. And like now, that's just non-existent. And it's sad. It's ridiculous that it's gotten that way, where people are so unappreciative of stuff. Like, I just really wish people would start being more appreciative of things and stop complaining about what they don't have. Be grateful for what you have now. Like, even if it's something small that someone got you, you don't need to be like, oh, with like a forced thank you. Like, be grateful for what you have. Like, there's so many ungrateful people, and it's ridiculous. Like, I see so many people saying, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. Why can't I have this? Why can't I have that? Or, why aren't you making this? Oh, why can't you do this? So-and-so is doing this. You can't do that. It's not good to belittle people. Because if you're going to belittle people, you're never truly going to be happy. If you can't be happy with yourself, how are you going to make that person happy? And how are they going to make you happy if you can't make yourself happy? It's a vicious circle. Like, it's just how it goes in life. Like, it's a vicious cycle where, like, if you're going to expect someone else to make you happy, how are anybody or anything going to make you happy if you can't make yourself happy? Like, that's the thing. Like, you have to be able to be happy within yourself. Make yourself happy. If you have a hard time making yourself happy, then my advice to you is every morning when you wake up, when you go into the restroom, when you go into start getting ready for the day, look at yourself in the mirror. Pay yourself one compliment. Just one compliment goes a long way to being able to love yourself and heal yourself of any self-doubt. If more people would take time and do that, there'd be less insecurities and there'd be less sense of you trying to hide your insecurities. So just take time out every morning before you even start brushing your teeth. Pay yourself one compliment. Just say, hey, you look good today, or say, hey, I'm amazing and I'm going to be an amazing person. That's all you need to do. Just look at yourself. Just pay yourself a compliment. It goes a long way, paying yourself a compliment. And don't ever, not pay yourself a compliment. It's always important to pay yourself a compliment, because in the end, it only matters if you love yourself. Because no one else can love you or pay you a compliment if you can't even pay yourself a compliment. So it's important to be able to love yourself and compliment yourself. Because in the end, all you have is yourself. In order to get that other person to love you, you have to love yourself. That's just how it's going to work. And that's how any other successful relationship's going to work. Your friends aren't always going to say things to boost you up. They're just going to go, oh, it'll get better. Because some of them know even if they tell you something, it still falls on you. It falls on what's going to make you happy is by complimenting yourself. That's the only way you're going to ever be happy, is to give yourself self-care, self-love. That's more important, because without that, you can't love another person. And they can't love you back, just mainly because you can't love yourself. And if I would have known back then what I know now, I probably would have already been married and had kids by now. But I had so many insecurities. I had so many bad thoughts about myself. And sometimes, sometimes it's just, it's a battle. I still battle from time to time with it, but it's gotten so much more better, because now I understand the process of, you have to self-care. So you have to care about yourself. If you can't love yourself, how can you expect to get the love from someone else? Like, especially if you want a girlfriend, how's she going to love you if you can't love yourself? And if a woman's trying to get a man to love them, how can that man love you if you can't love yourself? You can't self-respect yourself. It's a two-way street. Like, it's not gonna just be this and that. Like, you gotta love yourself first. Instead of saying, oh, I'm ugly, oh, I don't look good, or this and that. Don't think like that. The second you start thinking like that, you're always going to be negative. You're always going to have that negative thought in your head, and it's going to drive you crazy, and it's going to drive you to the point where you just put so much depression and anger in your heart that you will start doing self-harm. And I don't want people to do that. So it's starting today. If you're hearing this message, start paying yourself a compliment by looking at the mirror and just saying, I'm amazing. I look good today. You're good. I'm good. I'm awesome. You got to bring yourself up, because the more you bring yourself up, the more self-esteem you're going to get, because you're giving yourself self-care. Self-esteem and self-care are one and the same. Without self-care, your self-esteem is low because your self-care is low. To have high self-esteem, you got to have high self-care. So it goes both ways. So you got to give yourself self-care in order to have high self-esteem. People can't bring your self-esteem up. Only you can. So you got to remember, you got to give yourself self-care first in order to have self-esteem. Without self-care, there is no self-esteem. If you allow people to bring your self-esteem down, it's because you're not giving yourself self-care. Because anyone with high self-esteem and high self-care don't care about what other people think. And you shouldn't care about other people think. If they want to bash on you, make fun of you, that's on them, because they're the ones who have the insecurity and they're jealous. So just remember, in order to have high self-esteem, you got to have high self-care. And that's the only way you're ever truly going to be happy with yourself. You got to also find something that makes you happy. If you're going through depression or whatever, listen to uplifting music, happy music. I don't recommend certain musics. Like, as much as I used to love listening to hip hop back in my younger days, as I'm getting older, I don't listen to a lot of hip hop anymore, because anytime I was dealing with depression or anxiety, every time I heard hip hop, anything when they're talking about violence or something negative, it gets you into that dark space in your head where you start thinking negative. You start getting mad. You start getting angry, and it comes out. I'm not saying all hip hop is bad. There are some good hip hop out there where they strictly do positivity, where they don't talk about negative things at all. They don't even swear a lot. There are some hip hop out there that is good, but just for me personally, on my journey of self-care, I just decide not to listen to a lot of hip hop unless it's just instrumental stuff. I try not to listen to anything that has words in it because sometimes words will trigger your ambitions to start going down because you're not going to be ambitious enough to keep fighting and pursuing what you're trying to go for. So you got to really, really, really try to give yourself self-care and self-love to get that high self-esteem, and always listen to uplifting music. Don't listen to stuff that's depressing. As much as I used to also love listening to metal music, I don't listen to a lot of it anymore. Just mainly because it would bring my confidence down. I'd start falling back into that depression. I'd start falling back into that, oh, I'm not good enough. Remember, you're always good enough. Everyone is good enough. Everyone can do what they want to be. You got to have high ambitions and dreams. Go and chase after your dreams. Nothing is too small to fight and chase for your dreams. Remember that. And there's so many people that go out there and try to find an easy way to make a living, especially the women. There are some men that do it too, and it's sad that they do these adults only content, and people need to understand, like, that is temporary happiness. It's not something that's going to make you fully happy. And every time you do it, remember, eventually you're going to start destroying a lot of your self-esteem and self-care, and it's going to keep going down, 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 because it's your conscience that's actually getting into your head and telling you, you know, what you're doing is degrading. So you got to really, really give yourself self-care to have high self-esteem. And you can't let anybody that talks bad about you affect you, because the second you allow that, they just won. You didn't, but they won. But if you learn to just brush it off and ignore it because you know you're not those things, you won that battle, not them. So just always remember to stay positive, everyone, because life's too short to worry about what someone said and all that. Just be positive. Like, boost your self-confidence up. Like paying yourself a compliment. Giving yourself self-love. Even if it means you gotta go and give your own self a hug and be like, you're a good person. Do it. Like, it's the most amazing feeling in the world to give yourself self-love, because no one else is going to do it for you. You have to give yourself love first. If you can't love yourself, no one else can love you. That's just how it is. And everyone that says, I'm not deserving of love, that's because you haven't given yourself self-love yet. You haven't given yourself self-care. Because if you've given yourself self-care and self-love, you wouldn't think like that. And I understand, yes, a lot of times it's because of how they grew up or their family grew up. But in the end, you can't keep pointing the finger at that. Sometimes you got to start working on you. And just remember that happened. But what you need to do is fix within yourself. Because the more you let that stay in your mind of you pushing forward, you're not gonna push forward if you allow that to keep leading your life. It's okay to remember that, but you gotta start boosting your own self-confidence up by giving yourself self-love in order to receive love. And that goes to a lot of men and women. Because if you can't self-love yourself, you can't give yourself self-confidence, you're not going to have self-esteem. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the richest person in the world. If you came and give yourself self-love, how's anyone going to ever truly love you? But that's my spiel, and I appreciate a lot of people that are tuning in. It means a lot. Like, seriously, heart for you guys. Like, that's just awesome. Seeing that there's a total of 4 people in here just watching, that just shows a lot of appreciation to me. Like, that means a lot. Being able to just talk to some of you and just like trying to pass on positivity, because I love positivity. I feed off of it. It's just like, it's the best feeling in the world. Positivity. Like, negativity, don't bring it, because I don't like it. I won't accept any type of negativity. The only thing I'll accept is like constructive criticism, but if it's going to be super negative to the point where you're saying, oh, you suck, this and that, I'm just going to laugh at you, and I'm going to be like, so you had enough energy to bash on someone, but instead of giving positive feedback, you want to give super, super negative feedback. I'm just going to laugh at that and brush it off. And I'm just going to move on to the next best thing. And just remember, like, anyone can be successful, but you got to start by giving yourself self-care, self-love, to boost up your self-esteem, to boost up your ambitions. Because without your high self-care, high self-esteem, there is no high ambitions. And there's no pursuing your ambitions. Because you're always going to fall back down to that depression. So don't ever let that get to you. Just remember that. But I'm going to call it for the podcast. I appreciate everyone that was here. But before I go, we're going to go on a raid on the Purple brand. I'm going to try to find someone who I want to give some love to. Okay. We're going to raid this person named Combative TTV. He's a veteran in the military, and we're going to give him some love because he's a cool person. Like, I was in his stream earlier this morning, and he's really cool, so we're going to raid him. And have a nice day, everyone. God bless. And remember, give yourself self-love and self-care. Without that, you're not going to have high self-esteem, and you're not going to be able to receive anything positive back. So remember that. Take care, everyone, and God bless.